It was 20 degrees outside, and I thought, what better day than to come outside and build a tipper truck. Every day is a good day to build a tipper truck, by the way. But I thought, this gives me an opportunity. We're going to have single digits in the next day. And I thought, what better time to build my tipper truck outside? So it was actually 20 degrees outside. I didn't want to be a baby about it. I did want to actually go outside and build this. And I found a bowl that I thought would hold enough water to completely submerge the tipper truck. Of course, Lego floats, not well, but it floats. So I knew the tipper truck wouldn't stay at the bottom. So I just put a little bit of room left in the water so that as the temperatures went down and the ice began to form, that eventually the tipper truck would be frozen in place so that I could then add the additional water. It took a little longer to get to that point than I was expecting. It was several hours, actually. So I don't know if the water was... I don't know. I don't know why the water didn't want to freeze so fast, but finally it got to where you could tap on it, and you could see it had gotten dark outside by the time this had happened. So I thought, okay, now it's frozen enough that I can add water and it won't rise to the top. So I added a little bit more water. Now I wasn't sure what would happen. I figured there'd be 2 layers in this giant ice cube I was making. I also wasn't sure if the water I was adding would melt the ice that had already formed, but it didn't. And so now we have the tipper truck completely submerged in ice. And when ice or water, when water freezes into ice, it expands. So I knew that could be a problem. I was like, will this cause the Lego that's inside there to break? Oh, I had to take a break and hold my grandson, Milo. These are the best breaks ever. We were listening to a Postman Pat, and then he fell asleep. That's what he does. But anyway, I was like, okay, as this ice forms and it expands, is it going to crack the tipper truck? So I was really worried about this because this is the only tipper truck I have on this channel. And I knew that it would take a while for it to completely freeze. So you can see bubbles in it, so that's how you know there's still water in there. And so I just come out and check it, and I figure, well, overnight maybe it will be a solid chunk of ice. I wasn't really 100% sure that it would form a solid chunk of ice. I hoped it would. I figured it would, but I don't know. I'm not I pretend to be a scientist. I'm not really a scientist. So this is my experiment to see what happens when you put a 47-year-old Lego set in ice. So kept coming out to check it, still getting air bubbles. But the next day, voila, we have Captain Tipper Truck. That's my Captain America reference. You shouldn't have to explain your references, but I do. So I was a little disappointed that it became cloudy. Now that's probably from all the air bubbles that was in it. But I was glad it was a solid chunk of ice. So I took it into the kitchen and put it under some water to kind of break the ice. To help it separate. And I was afraid it was going to crack, and it did, or it does have cracks. I don't know if it cracked when I just poured the water over the container, but there are little hairline cracks through this block, but it didn't break apart. So I was very pleased. I took it back outside so it wouldn't start melting. And then I had to decide, now what do I want to do from here? In my mind, I pictured a clear piece of ice. That didn't happen, obviously. I don't think it can happen now that I've done this. You can see the line where I had the extra layer of water was added, but I'm so pleased that it was completely frozen. It's like Encino Man here. So I took it into the studio and put it in a pan, so I didn't want to ruin my table. And I wanted to do a time-lapse, so that's what I did. And I would come down ever so often to check it. I did touch it and move it as I was filming, so if you see the time-lapse video that I posted, you'll see it kind of move from time to time. Sometimes that's it moving from melting, but sometimes I actually touched it and moved it. I didn't remove it from this. It was in this container the entire time as it was melting, and it started off very slow. Now the temperatures were not warm in the basement, but they still were above freezing, so it was going to melt. It took a long time. Actually, was the entire time lapse. I filmed it over a period of 25 hours nonstop. So I put a wireless charger on my phone. I hit time lapse and let it go. And I was actually disappointed when I got done. The whole time lapse, it wasn't as long as I thought it was going to be. I guess it compresses. The longer you record, the more it compresses. But I just kept checking it while I was filming, and I thought about stopping the time lapse and hitting record again, but I never did it. It was one continuous time lapse. So all this with me coming in and filming these clips, checking it, I'm still recording the time lapse on a separate phone. So this, I did do a time lapse with a phone, and I'm recording the other clips with another phone. Now, this is my favorite part. The tipper truck actually seemed to form wings. I wish I had gotten more video of this. And in the time-lapse video, you can actually see where the right wing kind of, it melts off, and then the tipper truck actually tips. I didn't do that. That was actually what happened in the video. Now, I did touch it here and move it. And again, the time-lapse is recording during all of this, all these things. But then here is the unedited time-lapse. I thought originally it was like 14 seconds. I think the whole time-lapse is about 25 seconds, so occasionally you'll see my hand pop in. I did on the edited version of this, I extended it to where it was over a minute long, and I cut out the clips where you would see my hand in it. But yeah, this, how long was this clip? 14, 25 seconds? It wasn't very long. And then this is, I actually recorded this in slow-mo. I just tipping the water out, and this was added to the end of the time-lapse video, but just not in slow-mo. It's added in real time. And yeah, the tipper truck, I was pleased that it survived. It did not crack. I do not appear to have any cracks on the tipper truck. Any of the bricks, I was especially worried about the windshield. Of course, all of these pieces could be replaced, but for Tipper Truck TV, the tipper truck is all I got. If anything happens to this, I will never be able to replace it because this is the tipper truck for Tipper Truck TV. There can be no other tipper truck. So I took it apart. And I was interested to see that while it was still water in there, that water had seeped into the windshield area. So that was pretty neat. And yeah, so it survived. I take it apart. Nothing was brittle. Nothing broke as I took it apart. It was a success. The tipper truck frozen experiment worked. I had to set the pieces out and let them dry. I don't want to run these through a dryer. I just let them air dry on the table for a while. Then I got a towel and kind of helped them dry so I can put them back in the box, and the tipper truck will live for another day.